From their very beginnings, the public library in America has always been discussing and trying to define what its purpose and mission ought to be in the society. It's such a ubiquitous institution. That is to say, every community in America has one. And while this was very clearly defined at the outset of the public library movement in this country, the movement itself never quite measured up to the standard they set then, nor did it particularly pursue that direction. The idea of an institution that was somehow communal or community-based goes way back to the 1700s, goes back to Benjamin Franklin, in fact.
We're getting back to some of the more fundamental, missions of the library, of advising people on what to read, Reader's Advisory, the Cultural Center for the Community, the Great Good Place.
You asked about how I would define that great good place, and one of the things I think that's terribly important about what libraries are doing now is exactly that. They are trying to come up with a way to provide an institution in which the citizens of the society, each community, can define that great good place in their own way, to fit their needs and their interests. And every library in the country is engaged in this process of trying to redefine its purpose along those lines.
Pack up all my cares and woe, here I go, singing low.
Mark Twain called it the Gilded Age, when everything seemed new and anything was possible. It was also an age of great wealth and conspicuous excess, glittering on the surface, but underneath corrupt with greed and guile. But one man defied the conventions of that age, Andrew Carnegie. He gave away his fortune because he believed that great wealth meant nothing if it wasn't for the common good. So he built thousands of libraries across the land and brought the entire world into the hearts and minds of countless millions. 100 years later, the spirit of his generosity is with us still in cities and towns like Darien, Connecticut. This is the main street of Darien, Connecticut, settled in 1696 by people from nearby towns. In 1841, the railroad came here, and because Darien is so close to New York, it turned into a commuter city. Despite the familiar images of a small New England town, Darien faces the same cultural and sociological problems we all face. I've been watching American towns for 50 years, and while it's obvious that life is very much the same as it always was, a lot of fundamental things have changed. Some have changed for the good, and some have not. Many of us no longer have the mom who stays home to care for us, or that family dinner where you find out what Susie did in school or how Johnny's college applications are going. Well, that's a thing of the past, even for families in Darien. We need to find a way to get back to that sense of community, that need to be together that we've lost. Sociologist Ray Oldenburg has come up with an idea for that. He thinks we need to build special places separate from where we work and where we live. He calls them great good places. Build them, he says, and we can rediscover the lost arts of community and human interaction that refresh the mind and spirit. But that great good place has been here all along. Our good old public libraries, like this one, have served us very well. But to become that special great good place, to get back what we lost as social beings, they've begun to reinvent themselves. They really need to be overhauled, to be reborn into a great good place that really was part of their origin. But it's happening, and here in Darien it began very early. This is a film about how a small group of dedicated citizens got together and decided to create their own great good place. They closed their old library and built a new one. It took them 10 years. They set a high bar for innovation and service, and they built a state-of-the-art library and community center that is hailed around the world as the gold standard of what a great good place can be. They proved that those qualities which made our country great, pride in the community and its institutions, hard work, never giving up, pulling together for a common cause, those qualities are still alive and well. This is their story, and it begins right over there.
Welcome, welcome. I want to welcome you all on this very, very special occasion. I'm Kim Hufford, president of the Darien Library. Once in a lifetime, a community builds a library, and for those of us in Darien, that time is now.
In a time when we could use some good news, this is great news right behind me here today. You know, going back to the founding of our country, putting up libraries and schools was something that we all did and made our community stronger. And today, Darien's community is so much stronger by this wonderful asset that we now have.
How did you feel that day? I think it was like a year ago Sunday that you had your ceremony. How did you feel that day?
It was great. I mean, particularly just seeing all the people, in town. I mean, it's a real town project, and to me, it's so unique to have that library totally privately funded. $24 million of private donations. And the outpouring of good feelings is a terrific accomplishment.
I think what we found as we got into it was that we were not building just a library, the bricks and mortar. We were building an experience. And so as we got more involved in it and as the staff threw themselves into it, I think we understood that we had a great library and a great director of the library and that people really enjoyed it. I think as we got more into it, we really got a better understanding of the experience that the library gives to the people in the town, and that's why the people of Darien love the library so much.
It's often said that there are really three places in people's lives. There is the place where you work, and the place where you live, and there's some other place. It's a place where you want to go to meet your friends, where it's comfortable, where you exchange viewpoints, and it's often said that that is kind of the center and core of democracy in that community.
You know, I've seen pictures of this library. I've seen articles about this library. I've seen Louise and Alan do a presentation about this library, but nothing prepared me for the real thing.
Interesting study that I read out of New Zealand that said that the fifth person in line has blood pressure and a heartbeat 20% higher than the fourth person in line. I think in New York it's like second and first, but we wanted to make sure we didn't have people in line. This has been one of the best successes of the library in terms of the percentage of people who are checking out. We think of this kind of like a bookshop.
God, it's so
and
exciting.
the reader advisors are now not so much tied to there. Wherever you put your finger on there is going to make that difference. So, for example, let's pull. The way it works is we want to erase it. So we're going to erase all that picture. You guys can erase that whole. Whoops. Too many fingers. First in the children's room, even though no one else would do that because we just thought that was the right way to send a signal. If you think about the library, what it can't be anymore is what this library was very good at 25 years ago, which was a great place to go get the most recent book or to get a piece of educational information or reference information. But libraries are so much more than that now. So it's going to come down, and what it's going to do is it's already down there now. It's come in the ceiling, and it's turned a corner, and there's a logic to the source. Right. The logic is if it doesn't know what it is, it puts it there.
Right.
If it can't identify it. But if it's on hold, it comes here. Children's, like we were up in children's, and on that right side, that F5.
We hear about the most innovative things that are going on in the library world. So, and I always feel privileged by that because I see, you know, as I said, I just see what's new, what's coming down the pike, what the new thinking is, and that's why I admire what's going on here so much.
Other libraries doing this, or is it?
Well, we're the first, so other libraries are fascinated by doing it.
Something people will be looking at for a while because so many libraries have so far to go.
I look to this library as a trendsetter and one of the leaders sort of out on the edge, testing the water and saying this is what we believe in and this is how we think we should run our library. I really believe this is a model that other libraries should look to.
For 20,000 people to build this wonderful place. These are incredible achievements, and I think it required a broader view than the narrow definition of what a library should be and was of a few decades ago, where I grew up.
What you have in this space is a space that was fundamentally designed around the experiences that needed to happen. Yes, it holds books. Yes, it holds desks. Yes, it circulates. It does the traditional library stuff. But it also has auditorium, meeting rooms, study rooms, reading lounges, quiet spaces, public spaces, teen rooms, computer labs. All of those are part of the information and community and learning experience that libraries support.
We decided about 6 or 7 years ago that if we were going to be the best library that we could be for the citizens of Darien, that we had to think about being something more than what we were. And the only way that we could get a goal that would take us to that point was to say we want to be one of the best libraries in the country.
The top administrative staff here has articulated a vision of why Darien Library is special, that we are different, that what we have decided to try to do as a library is very high. We set the bar very high in terms of what this library can do and have not settled for average.
Now, we don't get to decide whether we're the best library in the country. Other people will decide to do that, but we get to decide that that's our goal. And that is an explicit goal that we've set for ourselves. In some measures, the Hepler report, for example, and what Library Journal just did on its 5-star analysis, we're ranked among the top 3 or among the top 10 libraries in the country.
Some people say, well, this is a well-funded community. What we're talking about really is a cultural attitude and a sort of a service attitude. It's not about money. And some of the things that I saw today on the tour and sitting in a wonderful lunch with a group of library staff that are fired up to be here, it wasn't about money, it was about the connections and interacting with the library users, and that would go to any type of library.
A great good place is attractive physically. It's a facility that makes people want to go there and see it, sometimes because it's sensationally different, sometimes because it's a great work of art, beautifully placed, sometimes because it's a model for other things. For example, this one shows you that you can build a building that looks very traditional on the outside, but it is a LEED certified, ecologically sound building. Here's a model for this whole town on how you build things where you don't have to be oil dependent and you can mine the ground to get the heat and cool.
So the Darien Library is a green building and was originally, before anything was built on it, a gas station and a car wash. And so before we could build here, we actually had to remediate this site. And what that meant, essentially, is that all of the ground and all of the earth that was immediately underneath the gas station had to be dug out because it was contaminated with diesel and gas and all of the runoff that's associated with the car wash, if you think about all the nasty things that accumulate on your car. So that was the first big thing that we had to do to make this a green building.
When we spoke of transparency, you come up these stairs. Is there some overall vision or a series of objectives for the building that can be defined? That's one big piece. In other words, what is it that they're trying to do? What is the nature of the place that the building will occupy? What can I learn about that that helps me understand what kind of a building and landscape should be designed for that setting? We ran into a number of buildings which I would call episodic, which is to say that you'd be in one space and then you'd go to another space and you'd be in another space, and each of them would be different and somewhat separate. We were trying for continuity and transparency so that you could be in the reference library on the second floor, but you could still see over to nonfiction. You could still see into periodicals.
When you walk into the library, you have a very different feeling, I think, than you do from an old-fashioned New England building. There's such a sort of integration of all the different kinds of services here.
That seems to me to make it an important public building. It also makes it a place where people feel safe and where they know they can be observed and they're not in some nook or cranny all by themselves.
For somebody who works in the building, it feels like an overwhelming sense of possibility.
The ceiling is high and the light is coming in and there's these beautiful angles to see. It's very inspiring.
What's inside it is like a living catalog of what's available in this society now, technologically, in terms of books, in terms of programming, new movies, the whole thing.
Hello, I'd like to order french fries, a burger, and a milkshake. This is a library. I'd like to order french fries, a burger, and a milkshake.
I mean, not only is it a model in terms of design, in terms of green design, but it's a model of service.
Really what is the thing that sets Darien Library apart, we think, from any other library, which is extreme customer service. Everyone these days talks about customer service. And we've not just been talking about customer service for 25 years, but we've been doing it. People come from a long way away to see what we do.
There was a period of time when libraries, many libraries in this country were intimidating. And as a child, I was intimidated by my first visit to a public library, which I think is one of the reasons why I have this zeal to make sure that any library I work in is friendly and approachable and not intimidating. And I think for children especially, it's got to be a joyful place. I think we have the best library staff in the whole world, just no question about it. And the staff in this library were recruited and hired because of their personal qualities to provide a really high level of service to the public, and as a result, they're really nice people, and they also provide quality customer service to each other. We try to have a corporate culture here that includes treating each other with the same kind of respect and customer service as we treat the people who come in to use the library.
You come here, you're going to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. You're not going to make any more money than you're going to make any other place. And this is a remarkably expensive place to live. So why would you come here? The only reason that you would come here is if you think that you can make a significant difference in the lives of the users and can have a significant role to play in the success of this library. The only way we can have it be the best library in the country is we've got the best librarians working in it and who have chosen to come here when they could be a success in any other library as well.
I want to put out librarians that want to work in a place like this.
This is Louise Berry's hallmark, is that it's public service oriented. I mean, this is, can we help you? How can we help you? Serve the public. You know, that is, and that is not really true of every library.
When you get here, you're going to see a smiling face. You're going to have someone that's going to take you by the hand and help you. We like everyone that comes into the library, from the toddler on the floor to that 95-year-old patron.
We help a lot of people that are homebound, and it seems so small, but people, they have us on speed dial, and so they will place a call for anything. They will say, can you tell me what the weather is going to be tomorrow? Those are the small things that don't mean anything to anybody, but it's the world to that person, and we are their touchstone.
They are talented, they're smart, they're funny, they are dedicated to what they do.
We are doing something that benefits the community, so we feel good about what we're doing inherently by working in a library. We're helping people. We are helping an older person learn how to email their grandchild. We are getting children excited about reading. I sit in my office and I see children coming into the library, skipping and happy to be here. And so every day we're getting positive feedback about what we are doing in terms of how we're benefiting people. And people tell us that, and that makes us want to do even more.
I tend to deal with the only way to really think of it is, again, not as one library for the 20,000 people who live in this community, but one library for each of the 20,000 people that are in this community, for each one of them when they come into this library physically, when they call to get a piece of information, when they go online to find a book, when they access our database. At that moment, we want it to be the most perfect thing in their lives. We don't have people behind a desk waiting for someone to come to them. They're out in front of the welcome desk. They're out in front of the reference desk, the Knowledge and Learning Services desk. The children's librarians aren't sitting behind an august desk waiting for timid little kids to come up to them. They are out in front. That time when one librarian is talking to one patron, that time, by the way, is never, ever going to come again. It will only happen then.
The library provides that great good place in which to do that, but it also provides us with something you don't get at the motor vehicle department, You get a little bit of it in the public school. You certainly don't get it in other public agencies, and that is face-to-face human contact.
I have an incredible amount of freedom to implement the things that I'd like to do in terms of technology. But I think more than that, it was a sense of being given an opportunity to embark on something that was not happening anywhere else. Really, it was the vision that Louise and Alan had for the library and their willingness to hire people and let them implement it the way that they think it ought to be implemented.
Well, that's Alan Gray's, to Alan's credit, that he found John Bleiberg. We started to work on recruiting him. It took us 2 years.
He is famous in this field for having created ways to use that technology to get interaction about what's in this collection and about the way it operates.
Go around, take a look at the building. What you'll notice is that most of the technology that we have here is integrated in what we do in some way. There's nothing that's sort of just hanging there. There's no technology that gives you the impression that, why is that there? All these things that kind of are interconnected, we've tried to make sense. We want to put technology in this building so that it helps people and it doesn't interfere with them and it doesn't overwhelm them or intimidate them in any way.
What we showed John he could do, and then he showed us what, even more so than we had thought, what you can do, is to develop the technology that overlays so much of what we do, make it available to the people here in Darien. But some of the work that he's done, he's provided to all the other libraries in the country.
This is a FKI materials handling system, and essentially what it allows us to do is provide an automated return point, well, three automated return points for our patrons. So they can either drive up or they can walk into the building and put their returns into a machine, which will then return all of those items via conveyor belt and rollers to this location. What happens is once those items come down this way, they get pre-sorted. So instead of our staff having to sort through every single item to say, this is going to children's, this is going to nonfiction, this is going to DVD, this machine does that.
Some of this Carnegie would have rolled over in his grave to see this.
Comedy believes that new generations, the young are right and the old are wrong. The generational change changes things. I want to make it clear, these are not two mutually exclusive views. Shakespeare wrote comedies and he wrote tragedies. He's not a philosopher or political scientist, he's a playwright. He can have different dispositions the same way you and I can. But it just got transformed. Why? Theseus said earlier, even I can't overrule this. This is the law. Look at the fine print. All of a sudden it's fine. Why? Nobody knows why. It just happened.
What I value in libraries is how we protect art and culture and make it accessible.
You applaud at the end of the play, and the magic and the drama are one and the same. The Midsummer Night's Dream is the play. Thank you.
I like planning the author talks, getting to meet the authors, read the books, anticipate reaction to the books and reaction to authors that, for the most part, we've met, and now we have a wonderful opportunity to bring that author here and introduce them to our members. That's very exciting.
We got the real deal. Please help me welcome David Baldacci.
Now, I've seen a lot of libraries across the United States and in other countries as well. This is just a tremendous facility. I told Barbara that this should be the model for library building across the United States. It has everything you would want here. It has warmth and size and spaciousness and all the high-tech stuff, but it has a feeling of community. When I also heard it was built with private dollars, that's just, wow.
Needs for entertainment. Entertainment that can be shared, programs that can be understood, a place where you can go and ask questions of people who are expert in whatever it is, from cults to medicine. So it's that place, community-based, a place where you may live next door to someone and not interact with them, a place where you can go and interact with your neighbors and your fellow citizens.
Think about it. The first public place that any child goes is often the library. They're at home, they're in their friends' homes when they're young, they might go to a doctor's office, they go to a grocery store, but in kind of a public place, libraries first.
Yeah, that early development, that stimulation early on, just the love and the affection, being touched, being spoken to, being looked at, looking at things, all of that is really, really important to development. And without that, children have a hard time thriving.
Good job!
The Darien Library has been very children-oriented. I think for a long, long, long time, and certainly now, you see the children's room and you see the usage and the children just pouring into the library.
It's got to be a joyful place where they love being in a library so that they can take advantage of all the things the library can offer them. getting children excited about reading is clearly one of our most important roles in the community.
Gretchen is rightfully so the head of that department. She's got the kind of intellectual and moral commitment to children's services that you would want, and then she's got all of the intangibles that when she walks in a room make her something special to the people she's talking to.
Children get to choose to come here. This is not a school. They're not forced to come here with their, well, parents might force them to come here, but in any case, it's a choice. They're not required to be here. And in that way, every moment that we have with those children and their parents can be teachable moments, opportunities for us to show them something new, to allow them an opportunity to discover. And also for kids, we create programs that allow them to create. And it's really magical and inspiring to have a child make those connections. Every time those synapses fire and they're making these connections and forging new pathways, you know, we really become a part of their lives. And I think it's a very powerful role to be a role model to these kids and to establish that trust. Over time, we become a part of their lives. I think it's incredibly special no matter how busy we are or we have so many tasks to do on our checklists. But when a child can come over and I can teach them how to search for something and empower that child, and you can see them, they have an aha moment.
One of the questions that we ask ourselves all the time is, what is the edge of the library? Is it the physical walls of this building, much more imposing than in the other library? Is that where the library begins and ends? Or does it go farther out into the community?
Look around you. So Mabella looked a little to the right and a little to the left. When we are marching, we never look back. The cat is at the end. Faux fang, faux fang!
For what?
One of the places where we are most careful to think that the library needs to extend past our walls out into the physical world of this community is in the schools.
Hi! Hi guys! How are you? Oh, it's so good to see you all.
This is actually a story. Do you guys know the name of that type of book? Yeah. Fiction. Fiction. Good job. So this one is a little bit silly, and I tried to explain it to the other class. Have you guys ever heard the phrase tongue-in-cheek? Do you ever hear your parents or your yeah? You've heard that? What do you think it means?
It kind of means that that you get really frustrated.
Oh, that's a good. I never heard of that. Maybe.
Can you raise your hand if you've done the library summer reading club before? Somebody said earlier you did, right?
If we start that relationship off right and amplify it every time the child comes in, that child is going to think positively of libraries and the experiences in libraries for the rest of his or her life.
A teen goes to 7-Eleven, they're kicked out as quick as they can get in there. Just come in, buy your thing, get out.
It broke my heart when in one of the focus groups, one of the teens said, when we were little children, the librarians all loved us, and now that we're teens, no one wants to have anything to do with us anymore.
One of the things that happens when they hit 13 or whatever, they become problematic.
In a lot of libraries, I think people are afraid of teens. It's a difficult age, and teenagers in groups can be frightening to people that don't have teens, haven't had teens, or even if they have, don't have them any longer, and they feel like teen behavior is a mystery.
Louise's point of view was always terribly in favor of, we've got to learn how to serve them and make sure that their experience is as rich here as anybody else's. Now, of course, the public library has always been used by adolescents, teenagers, and high school kids, and college kids as well, as that place. It was the one place, if you remember, if you said to your parents, even when I was a kid, hey, I'm going to the library, that was okay. But you could go to the library, and we did. And we went mostly to connect with each other.
We have the most amazing generation of kids right now. By almost every measure, the teens that we're dealing with now are genuinely intelligent, bright, likable, socially adept people. And the more we can do to make them find themselves and who they're going to be, the quicker they can find themselves, the better off society will be.
This library, they let me leave the video games out. I'm not monitoring what they're doing. They are free to move the furniture around, download stuff on the computers, play whatever games they want. They don't have to ask permission. They just have this space to do whatever they want in, and that is very special. A lot of libraries, they don't have that kind of faith in teens. So that's sort of like the bedrock of teen services at the Darien Library is the trust.
Yeah, they're very friendly to kids. They're always helpful, no matter what you need. They're used to kids because so many people come here, and they're so polite and helpful and kind, and they really just make it fun to be here. I think it's really nice, and I like how we have more space, and I think that the touch table and the touch screen in the kids' room really helps because you can look at maps, you can play games on it, and even play the piano. I mean, the place is so organized and they're so nice to kids. They have a whole kids section and it's huge and air conditioned. I mean, it's air conditioned. You guys gotta stop laughing. Wait, is this still recording?
Yeah. Libraries are the one place where you can feel safe no matter who you are, what age you are, no matter your language skill or whatever.
The Darien Library makes such a difference in the lives of each and every person in this community, all ages. We're the one organization in town that serves all ages.
It all goes down to the leadership of Louise building this library the way it is. It would not have happened without her. This is not a puff piece either. It's just the way it is.
Once in a lifetime, a community built a library, and for those of us in Darien, this time was now, and it took a community to build the library.
And I hope in many communities in this country today that there are people thinking that the highest aspiration that community can have would be to have an extraordinary library as a central part of that community. That's what we did in Darien, with the help of the many members of this community who gave a significant amount of money to allow us to build a library at the center of the community.
It is the people.
You can tell a lot about a community by looking at its library. And when you see a library like this in the center of a place like Darien, you know that it's a better community.
The thing that I'm proudest of here is that if I walked out of this library today, the culture is such here that this extreme customer service would live on, that it is, everyone on the staff is bought into it. So it isn't a culture that's based on one personality. It's based on a collective personality. And yes, I may have been the one that started it 30 years ago, but it has been built by successive staff members and leadership among various people on the staff. It no longer has my face on it. If it ever had my face on it, it no longer has my face on it. It is a Darien library culture that I think is unique in libraries certainly, and I think maybe in other organizations as well. And it's a lot of fun to see how it's evolved.